this is a question related to an STC. And as you will know, an STC is a large modification applied to an aircraft. During troubleshooting, the certifying staff discovered that the actual configuration is not in accordance with the STC data. Does it happen? Yes, it happens. However, the likelihood of this type of thing happening will probably occur in your career once every 10 years. Something like, if you're continually working on aircraft, once in 10 years, something really unusual will come along. And it's not trying to imagine what's going to happen that's important. It's understanding what is your possible steps, what's your roles and responsibilities. So a couple of things to say is that regarding the configuration of the aircraft, then the aircraft has to be certified against its configuration. If it's not, then there's a question mark whether the certificate of airworthiness is actually valid. So as a troubleshooting, as a technical staff, the first question you need to ask yourself is, what is the impact on the aircraft? So if it's a critical area, then it's quite significant. If it's a non-critical area, let's say it's a stowage or a part of the galley complex, which is somehow causing concern. So there are variations the first decision is you've got to decide how serious it is. And as we say, it's typical of the type of challenges that certifying staff will find themselves in. The first thing to say is it's not on you alone to make decisions. If you need support, that's what, for example, the maintenance control center is for. That's what the quality manager is for. That's what technical director is for, to basically understand your problem. So, as we said, the important step, knowing what to do to address the issues, and a series of questions will help you decide. Does the STC affect a critical system? If the answer is yes, then we've got a problem. We're going to have to ground the aeroplane until the issue is addressed. Why? Because the certificate of airworthiness is not valid, and the airworthiness review certificate as well is suspended effectively until we resolve it. And it creates lots of questions. For example, how come this situation occurred in the first place? How many airworthiness reviews has it had since this situation occurred? Why is it that I am finding this problem that nobody else knew about? So these questions need to be understood and resolved. And you cannot do it there and then as a technical staff. And what I would say, and I've spent decades and decades in quality assurance, and I would say to a guy, listen, it's not your problem. Do not feel an obligation to release an aeroplane that is not okay. If it's not okay, that's it. It's not okay. One airline I'm aware of, they nearly lost their AOC. Why? What did they do? So an aeroplane arrived at an outstation, and the captain reported that the aircraft had had a lightning strike, and they wanted somebody to do an inspection. When the 145 told them how long it's going to take to do the inspection, the captain of the aeroplane contacted the maintenance control, and the maintenance control said, okay, we'll do the inspection when you return. Don't put it in the tech log. Put it in the tech log when you arrive back at base, and we'll do the inspection then. And so what happened is exactly that. So the aeroplane had had a lightning strike, and instead of inspecting it, the aeroplane returned to base. I don't know how the CAA got to hear about it, but they did. And they went to the operator and said, we are considering removing your air operator certificate. Now that, I promise you, this is not a small airline. They were operating large aircraft, A330. And when the CAA said, we're considering removing your ALC and we're waiting for your response, I promise you that they got full attention of the accountable manager and the leadership team, because the decision to bring the aeroplane back was made by people in maintenance control that were basically making decisions they're not entitled to make. What you've got to understand is when that aircraft reported a lightning strike, that aircraft certificate of airworthiness is suspended until that lightning strike inspection is carried out and the aircraft's released. And here's the thing, if that aeroplane was returning and had an accident, then the insurance company, when they understood, they could say, I'm really sorry, but when you had that accident, you did not have insurance on your aircraft. So basically, the guy in maintenance control who's making a decision that he's not entitled to make on behalf of the airline, if that aircraft had had an accident and the insurance company said, sorry guys, it's not anything to do with us, we're not paying out, that would destroy the company. And sometimes people in maintenance control don't appreciate that they're actually playing roulette with their organization. It's quite a serious situation. And so what the CAA did was wake up the operator and say, okay, we're watching you, but understand that you came very close to not being allowed to operate. So it's a big wake-up call. And this STC story is in the same area. Different, but in the same area. So if a maintenance control guy, for example, said, it's okay, the aeroplane could return, he's simply doing what my lightning strike guy did. He's exceeding his authority. If you want that aeroplane to return, speak to the regulatory authority, tell them what the situation is, and ask for them to give you permission for the aeroplane to return. That's the reality. Okay. If the STC does not affect the critical system, the question is, can it be isolated? Is it necessary for a flight? If it's not necessary for a flight, then there isn't a big reason why the aeroplane should not continue to fly, and the issue, defect, whatever it is, can be deferred. Again, you need support from the continuing airworthiness manager and the quality manager. It's not decisions that the certifying staff on the line is expected to take on his behalf. And if I was that certifying staff and the quality manager or the continuing airworthiness manager said, okay, it's not a critical item, then you can release it. I'd say, okay, fantastic. Can you send me a document, please? Attach it to an email, send me a document giving me authority to release it on your behalf. So I would protect myself with a signed piece of paper. And they said, okay, but the aircraft has to go. We don't want to make the airplane late. We'll send the paper later. And I'll say, okay, it's not a problem. Take your time. As long as you want, take your time. But the airplane won't be signed until I've got that document. End of story. And I promise you, something that would be done later is suddenly done within 5 or 10 minutes because you're not giving ground. And that's correct. As certifying staff, you must always protect yourself, because if you don't, if something terrible happens, you will be on your own. Okay, let's look at the next one. And what we've spoken about, without certification, the STC invalidates the C of A. So there are clearly issues involved which need to be addressed. Possibly it's been installed correctly and certified, but the follow-up documentation was not completed. Typically, an investigation will be carried out by the CAMO quality manager, maybe in conjunction with the 145. Here's the takeaway. It will happen from time to time. You will find things. The important thing is that you know how to address it and you protect yourself. And if you protect yourself, you're actually protecting the aircraft as well and the operator. And sometimes, unfortunately, some operators need protecting from themselves, if that makes sense.